Okay, welcome to the Questionable Calls podcast. It's Sunday, almost 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Clark, March Madness is here. Tournament starts this week. They just announced the teams.
Okay.
It's I'm kind of I think there's going to be a lot. There might be more interest in the women's team than the men's, or the women's tournament than the men's tournament for the first time ever. So we'll see how that goes.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not obviously I'm not a huge college basketball fan. I'm not watching it during the season, so I don't know a lot of what's going on. I only know a little bit, and we followed it last year because our local team FAU made it to the Final Four, which is rare, and they made the tournament again. I don't know if they'll go as far this year, but they definitely they got in. This is as I've talked about last week, we're getting close to a really fun time of the year. NBA games are ramping up. Like, seems like every game now, these are contentious battles. You're not getting guys are missing games still, but it's because they're actually injured and the teams are actually playing hard. So it's been a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun to watch. But the something we haven't talked about so far on the pod, and we were kind of waiting for it to finish until we both watched it, was the Dynasty documentary about the New England Patriots. It is on Apple TV, and let's give. I'll let you go first, Clark. You watch the series in pretty quick succession. What's your overall some things overall that you take away from it?
I think one of the main things is, God, how, like, them winning the Super Bowl that first time. How the hell did that happen? I mean, you know, Brady, like, how did he even make it on the team? Like, I mean, he barely made it into the league. I
Yeah.
mean, like, he hanging on by a thread. Okay. And then, um, you know, Bledsoe gets hurt, and it's not like Brady was playing that well. Like, he had a comeback against the Chargers, and then when Belichick announced that when Bledsoe was healthy enough to play and he was cleared to play, Belichick meets with the media and says Brady's going to be the quarterback, and then he plays the Rams and plays like shit. He was terrible. He threw 2 interceptions. They were awful, and they were 5-5. And so you're thinking, well, they got to go back to Bledsoe now, and then they still didn't. And then they win all the rest of their games. Now, granted, something they pointed out, and again, I feel like it's tough to get into this because it starts to feel like revisionist history, where we're saying, well, I mean, you could understand why they wanted to move on from Bledsoe, and it's like, I mean, maybe, and some of the guys in that are saying, yeah, we had some criticisms of him, like he didn't really respond well to getting pressured, and at that point he'd been in the league, 8 or 9 years, so he'd been in there a while, and maybe the thought is, well, he's taken so many hits, it's just kind of, and his career didn't really, I mean, he put up some numbers, but his career really didn't go anywhere after when they traded him to Buffalo, and then he was in Dallas, like nothing, it wasn't really good after that. So, I mean, I guess you can sort of say that now, but it just still like, he was making $100 million. He's a quarterback who'd been to the Super Bowl. So, and then the Tuck Rule game, and the funny thing is that I think they called it correctly based on the way that, but you have to understand this too. I mean, if Brady gets tackled maybe a split second later, that's a fumble, right? Because his arm comes down like this, and then it starts to come back. I mean, a split second later, ball's here, boom, ball's out, fumble, Patriots lose the game. And then, who knows, maybe Belichick gets fired. So just crazy. And then the next week, Brady goes out, Bledsoe comes in, and, he plays okay, but they win the game. And then it's like, well, should they go to Bledsoe or should they start Brady? And so then they start Brady, and like I mean, the Patriots just basically, they played really hard on defense for like 3 quarters, and then they just managed to do just enough to win the game. It's crazy. And then you think forward after that, it's It's like, how did this turn into a dynasty? Because after they won the game, no one was saying that. Everyone was like, oh, they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's a one-off thing. That'll never happen again. And of
Right.
course, they missed the playoffs the next year. You know, so it's crazy. And then they proceed to just turn into a really good team, over the next several years. But yeah, that to me really stuck out. Another thing, Deflategate, I don't know. On some level, I think I agree with a lot of the media people who are like, we made a big deal out of nothing.
Right.
Um, I guess there probably were some rules violations there, but it's not like Spygate. Spygate was a really huge deal, and that's a black mark on their legacy. So there was that, and then I thought overall the rest of it. I mean, it was pretty well done. I thought they had a lot of stuff in there. I will say this: Robert Kraft. Did it feel like every third sentence he was saying it was God's hand at work? What the hell was that? Did you notice that? Like he's just like especially during the first scene, I felt like it was. It's like, dude, will you stop it? Like that just seems a little ridiculous. Um,
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they spent 3 episodes on them winning the first Super Bowl, and to me, I get it because the way that happens sets up the entire thing. Like that's where the Patriots created their whatever you want to call their culture, their the way that they operated, the way that things work. Like that's to me that's the whole thing. And yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy when you look back on it. I really believe like, and that's my big takeaway from this thing is, Clark, how many times that was close to going off the rails? How many times that if this thing or that thing didn't happen, it might have been it? Because I don't know that Brady's, if they lose the Raiders game, I'm not sure that Brady's on the team the next year, because you could just clearly make an argument. Well, Bledsoe's healthy, he's $100 million, he's a better athlete, blah blah blah. You just make these arguments. Now the Boston, what I will give credit to is the Boston media was all over everything. Like they were on this. They thought that Brady was, they knew that Brady was probably the guy to keep playing. Like, so I do give them a lot of credit for that. But yeah, my big takeaway was that, wow, how hard was that? All the way till the end, it was difficult, and it felt like it just kept getting more and more and more difficult. There's this thing and there's that thing, and then there's the Belichick drafts Garoppolo, and then Brady's got to deal with that, and then it looks like they're going to lose the Atlanta Super Bowl, and it just it was one thing after the other, and for them to accomplish what they did, I had a lot of respect for them before. I definitely have an immense amount of respect for what they did, with the caveat that let's not pretend they didn't do anything wrong or didn't break the rules or didn't go to extreme lengths, because they did. Like
I
that's
really
just
like
the
the
way it
part
is.
where Kraft says, Bill, can you tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how important taping the other sideline is as far as you winning? And he goes, I don't know, 1. And well, then you're a schmuck. And I thought that was awesome because I mean that was completely ridiculous. And then Belichick's being interviewed and he's like, well, then I guess I just misinterpreted the rule. It's like, dude, shut up. You clearly broke the rules. If you didn't know that you broke the rules, then you're an idiot. Like that was, I just yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
that, and I mean, if we want to, I mean, I don't really want to spend too much time on this, but I mean, if I mean, I guess there maybe are some media reports that Belichick's not happy how he was portrayed in the documentary. Well, dude, then answer some freaking questions, okay? I mean, he just sat there the whole it's literally like I don't want to overblow, but he just sat there the whole time and he's grumpy and he's not answering any freaking questions. It's like, well, of course you're going to come off that way. Like fine, then don't be interviewed for the documentary. Like,
yeah, so let's go into that. So look, I mean, I agree with you, but and I don't understand why Belichick is even in it, because we could have gotten enough of things he said from footage from the time period. I don't understand. He's not really adding anything to the documentary by being on camera and speaking, because he doesn't really say anything interesting or provocative at all, and doesn't really want to answer any difficult questions. So I'm not really sure what what he's doing there. So what do you think about the idea? Because listen, there's going to be a lot of complaints from Patriots fans. You're making Belichick look bad. Blah 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 blah. My response to that is, The guy won 6 Super Bowls. Like everybody around who follows football knows Belichick's great. I don't understand why Belichick needs more credit than he's already gotten. And the way they showed it in the last 2 episodes, where he comes up with the game plan against the Rams and devises that whole thing. And I mean, to me, that's just like Belichick was incredible. That just doesn't take away to me. Like, and that's the best part of the documentary, Clark. It's complicated.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, let's transition to Patriots fans. Um, I got to be honest. Some of these Patriots fans, especially the ones that you see in the media, you guys seem like you are just whining and complaining. Okay, they seem like conservatives. You ever notice that? They're always talking about free speech and I want to say whatever I want, and then you criticize them and they get all offended. You know, Patriots fans, look, you won 6 Super Bowls. Okay, you went to 9. You made a bunch of AFC Championship games. You were considered the best team in the league for a long time. Okay, your quarterback is still considered the greatest of all time. Belichick, by most people, is still considered the greatest coach of all time. Okay, even with the Spygate and Deflategate stuff, there's some people who take a bunch of credit away from him, but for the most part, people acknowledge they won 6 Super Bowls. They were a great team. They were a dynasty. Like people don't take anything away from them. Okay. By the way, there's only one other franchise in the NFL that has 6 Super Bowls. That's the Steelers, and it took them like 35 years to do it. You guys did it in under 20. Okay? So you're great. Everybody pretty much acknowledges you're great. There's some criticism, but by and large, that doesn't take away from the fact all the winning that you guys did. So what are you people complaining about? I mean, good. You see people like Bill Burr and like other like just whining about it. And it's like, God, you guys won. And it's like they want their cake and they want to eat it too. It's like they want to not only win, but have everybody acknowledge them unqualified and just say you're great and not say anything else about it. And it's like, well, no, it's complicated. So, I mean, literally, toughen up a little bit. You did all that winning. No one's taking that away from you. That's the main point. We're not just going to suck up to you and just be like, oh, you're just amazing and all this other stuff. We acknowledge how good you are. That should be good enough.
I also think the documentary, like, do you want the documentary to be fair? Like, we got to talk about all this stuff. We have to talk about Aaron Hernandez. We have to talk about, all the scandal stuff. We got to talk about Brady against Belichick. Like, these are things that going to want to be talked about. For that reason, number one, because we want to tell the whole story, and number two, because we'd like you to actually be interesting. Because we just talk to about you guys winning. You're the most boring fucking team ever. Like, and that's not a criticism. That's just a fact. Okay, like, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's the greatest dynasty in the history of sports. I don't understand. There's nothing else like it. So I don't understand what more credit you need. It's just unbelievable to me. It's like you won all these Super Bowls, like the crazy stuff happening. The snow game, the Seattle game where Russell Wilson throws the interception. The 28-3 game. Like, you've got all this stuff in your resume that's unbelievable. Like, and there's no challenging it. But we have to be honest. We can't just go, whatever. The Deflategate thing was a fiasco. It went on way too long. The media turned it into a circus. The NFL did not help. And I blame everybody for this. This is the Patriots' fault. This is the NFL's fault. You guys made it look like a goddamn mockery. Instead of, you should have dealt with it and let it go on. Instead, you want to suspend Brady for 4 games for I don't know what. I mean, that was just way over the line. I'm not sure what planet you were on, trying to do that. All you did was drag out the story longer. So that's, but regardless, it doesn't mean that, nobody's perfect. Nobody does everything exactly, it wasn't always done the best way all the time, but that's okay. But yeah, I think that the criticism of the document, I think the documentary is really well done. I think they try to get everything in there, try to talk about everything that happened, but it's hard to condense 20 years into 10 episodes. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, I don't. Boston sports fans, some of you people, it seems like you're really unhappy. And what the hell are you unhappy about? Is it the weather? Like, I don't get it. The Red Sox couldn't win anything, and they've won 4 World Series. The Patriots won 6 Super Bowls. The Celtics won a NBA Finals. They went back to the finals again. They might get there again this year. The Bruins won a Stanley Cup. They were in the Stanley Cup Finals another time. They got a good team again. Like, what are you guys like? Literally, you guys have done so much winning. Like, just oh my God, somebody says a few things and criticizes you and makes valid points, and you lose your. It's like, come on, guys.
The other
You know,
thing is,
toughen
Clark,
up.
this wasn't just from the perspective of Patriots haters. They were talking to the players. The
Yeah,
players were saying Coach Belichick really didn't treat Brady very well. The players are saying it, guys. Like we
yeah.
didn't make this. This is the documentarian just kind of letting stuff, forcing his way and kind of creating his own path. This was what was laid out in front of him.
Well, I like the part where Belichick is all about, only do stuff that's for the good of the team. Don't do anything that could be a distraction. And then he sends a letter to Donald Trump saying, it's like, what are you doing? Like, we'll have a personal. It's like, yeah, well, that goes against the stuff that you were talking about the whole time, you know. So, and then the whole Malcolm Butler thing, like, what was that? I mean, now,
Yeah.
granted, I don't know if they would have won the Super Bowl if he was in the game. Who knows? But it's just one of those things. It's like, what? I don't understand. That's just weird.
Yeah, and so I was just really impressed that they were able to keep that together. And Robert Kraft says it in the last couple episodes, like I was just trying to keep the thing going as best as I could, even though I knew Brady and Belichick were not, they weren't getting along, and I was just trying to. And so I think they should get a lot of credit for that. The Patriots should get a lot of credit for that. Thing could have gone sideways. I don't know how many times. And they managed to rally and keep it together. Every time you thought they were dead, they kept coming back. And I
Yeah,
thought Brady was really good in all the episodes. And at the end, where he says, "Look, it's perfect. It doesn't need to be more than that." It was what it needed to end when it ended. It was better than anything I thought it could be, and that's all there is to it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked seeing them talking to all the players. I thought I thought most of the guys were really good. I thought Dion Branch was really good about Aaron Hernandez, and how you could tell how deeply that affected him. That it
yeah,
was he definitely still had a tough time talking about it, and I can understand why. And but yeah, it was just really well done. One of the better sports documentaries I've seen, and really good how they tied the whole thing together. But yeah, it's just kind of the way things are, Clark. Nowadays, like the way things are, just well, that's nonsense because everybody thinks they know better now. You know, everybody when they watch a documentary, well, it didn't really happen like that, and it's like and listen, these things have flaws. Like with the Last Dance with the Chicago Bulls, Clark, they presented. I wasn't a big fan of the way they presented Phil Jackson like he's an angel all the time because he never got along with any front office he worked with. So it's just kind of, but that's
yeah.
okay. That's part of the deal, but it was still entertaining to watch that and go back and look at it. And I learned stuff. The Patriots documentary, I learned a lot of stuff. I didn't know about that, partly because the Patriots never tell us anything, and partly because of unless you're in Boston, you don't know all the intimate workings of it.
Right.
So yeah, if you haven't seen it, I would definitely check it out. It's very, very interesting. I learned a lot of stuff. But all right, so let's move on, Clark. We had NFL free agency this past week. We got all kinds of people moving everywhere, and of course, the biggest story is just became a bigger story now that the Pittsburgh Steelers, first they sign Russell Wilson after he gets cut from the Denver Broncos, and then they trade a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields from the Bears. We kind of been waiting this whole time, and I was just looking on YouTube earlier. It really made me laugh. Ryan Clark on First Take was trying to say, "Hey, we don't know the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams."
Okay.
Which anybody who's got any kind of a reasonable amount of common sense knew, yeah, they're going to take Caleb Williams. Justin Fields is on the short list to get out of there. Like he'll be out of there quickly. And he was. They finally got. Now it cracked me up that everybody expected Justin Fields to get this incredible trade, and he was going to go for a 1st or 2nd round pick, and all of that stuff we talked about this before was nonsense. So now the Steelers, and then the Steelers also they trade Kenny Pickett to the Jaguar or to the who did they trade? The
The
Eagles.
Eagles.
That's right. They traded Kenny Pickett to Philadelphia. So now the Steelers entering next season, Clark. They have Russell Wilson on a minimum 1-year contract. They have Justin Fields on the last year of his rookie contract, unless they exercise the 5th-year option, which I don't imagine they're going to do because it would be about $25 million going into next season. So, Clark, I got to tell you, it's very unsteeler like, to just be like, no, this guy we told you we believed in. No, sorry, we're getting rid of him. We're moving on to this other guy. And so, I'm not. Listen, I think the Steelers are going to be the Steelers. They're going to be mediocre, like they pretty much have been for a long time now. And I don't think this changed anything. But what are your initial thoughts on Russell Wilson? We'll start with this. Let's do Russell Wilson first.
I'll defend the Steelers at first, and then I'll criticize them. Kenny Pickett was clearly not very good, so they needed to move on. Okay, so they did that. Russell Wilson is really cheap. Okay, Justin Fields, this is an expiring contract, so if they want to draft a quarterback next year, they totally can, because they don't. I mean, they're not under contract. These other guys aren't under contract, so they could move off of this really quickly, off of both of them. If it doesn't work out, or if they see somebody in the draft they like who they think could be better, who could really be a franchise quarterback. So I'll defend them from that standpoint, but and maybe maybe they just looked at the quarterbacks in the draft this year and just they don't think they're very good. And let's be perfectly honest here. Most years you get like one that's good and the rest of them are bad. I mean, the 2021 draft, Trevor Lawrence is good. We thought he'd be better. We thought he'd have popped by now, and he hasn't. He really hasn't. Maybe he still will. But all the other quarterbacks from that class are awful. I mean, or they got traded or they're not with their original teams. Mac Jones, is that Kenny Pickett? Yeah, Kenny Pickett. Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett.
No, Kenny Pickett was 2022.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Mac Jones, Zach Wilson. There might be somebody else in there I'm missing.
Trey Lance, yeah.
They clearly didn't work. So, and Justin Fields, like that, he's already moved. So maybe, again, that's how most draft classes kind of are. So we'll see what the Steelers do next season. In next off season. But I don't know what they think they're getting with Russell Wilson. And maybe this is like a stopgap thing. This is just a transition to them drafting another quarterback next year. But, I don't really see anything better than what they've been doing the last few years since Roethlisberger retired. I mean, really. I mean, it's basically the same thing, right? They're going to be mediocre. They'll try to run the ball. They'll try to play good defense, keep it low scoring, and try to make some plays here and there. And that's probably what Russell Wilson's going to do. He's going to hold on to the ball for way too long. He'll take sacks. He won't throw interceptions because he just won't throw the ball. He'll run around a little bit. He'll make a few deep ball throws that'll be pretty good. But I do find it funny that all these media people are like, oh, well, you're guaranteed to get 9 wins with Mike Tomlin, so you add Russell Wilson, then you can get a couple more. No, guys, no. If you're guaranteed to get 9 wins with the Steelers with mediocre quarterback play, then Russell Wilson should be able to do that. Okay, that's it. It's going to be mediocre quarterback play, unless he gets hurt or something, and then you're putting Justin Fields in there, and I don't know. Maybe they can figure out some way to play with him that works. But when I say works, I don't mean they're going to win a bunch of games. I just mean it works as in it can be somewhat effective. I just think the Steelers is going to be the same thing we've been seeing, because these are two mediocre quarterbacks. I don't care what the media tells you. If you've watched them play, they're especially Russell Wilson in the last couple of years. He's a mediocre quarterback. Justin Fields can't really play from the pocket.
Yeah, I think I think they've unless the Steelers have unlocked some technology where you can combine two people together, I don't think this is really going to work. Like if you could combine Russell Wilson and Justin Fields together, because I was thinking about this, right? Russell Wilson can't really move like he used to, can't really throw the ball in the middle of the field, right? Doesn't have a crazy strong arm. He can throw the deep ball pretty well though, right? 3 or 4 times a game, he can kind of throw it up there and give your receiver a chance. Justin Fields, right, has the strong arm, can move really well, It's too like they kind of they have each other. They kind of have each other's weaknesses, right? The weaknesses in one guy are the strengths for the other guy. The only thing is Justin Fields can't really read the defense very well, and doesn't
He
necessarily
doesn't
throw the
throw
ball.
any timing or anticipation throws. Yeah, neither of these guys do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. I think these are two mediocre quarterbacks. What I will say is though, if you're gonna have Russell Wilson, this is the kind of team you need to have him on. You need to have him on a team with a good defense, a team that's gonna try to run the ball, team with like a receiver who can actually be a deep threat. Like this is the kind of team that you need him to be on. But I just feel like the ceiling is just so low that I don't really think it matters. And
Yeah,
we were talking about, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast last week, but so Russell Wilson, again, more passes behind the line of scrimmage than any quarterback since 2005. That's 509 quarterbacks. He threw the most passes of any of them behind the line of scrimmage. Okay. He's, like we said, he's not great at throwing the ball in the middle of the field. 62% of his passes are 5 yards or less. So, like I said, 3 or 4 times a game, he will try to throw one deep, and sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't. But I just don't see how this is going to work. I think this is the idea that he's significantly better than Kenny Pickett. Maybe because he has more experience, he might be a little bit better. But yeah, I don't
he's
really
cheaper than
see it.
Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, yeah. But I just don't. I don't think. I'm not sure what the Steelers are doing here. They have the 20th pick in the first round, so it's not likely that a quarterback would be there. But we'll see.
Right,
You never know. But it wouldn't make any sense if you're going to make these moves to draft a quarterback also.
right.
It literally doesn't make any sense. So I'm not sure what their plan is. Like, is this a situation where it's like, oh, we'll have Russell Wilson play this year, and then Justin Fields. We'll try to see if Justin Fields can be the future. I I don't know about that. Pittsburgh is pretty offensively inept. Like, they don't do it. They fired the offensive coordinator in the middle of the season last year because they literally can't figure out how to do it right. So I just find it, but they have Arthur Smith now, so we'll see. It's kind of up in the air, but I don't think I'm not thinking the Steelers are like, I'm not going, oh, the Steelers are definitely a playoff team.
No,
I just
no.
don't see it. I just don't
It's the same thing it always is. So
yeah.
yeah, I just find it like for people listening to this, if you're listening to other people in the media trying to tell you that this is so awesome and now they're a Super Bowl contender, they don't know what they're talking about, or they're just trying to be interesting, so they're just saying something that has no basis in what we can actually see with our eyes.
Yeah, all the people who are like, no, they should just keep Justin Fields and trade the number 1 pick. It's like, yeah, they were never going to do that. The fact that they traded him for a 6th round pick, that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah,
Like, these are 2 quarterbacks that teams don't believe in. Like Seattle, like Russell Wilson has three different coaching staffs. Yeah, we're not really a big fans of this guy.
yeah,
Justin Fields, 2 coaching staffs where it's like, yeah, no, not really the guy. So yeah, it's that part is a little disturbing. But what I will say about the Bears, Clark, Bears made the trade for Keenan Allen. Like, I think like this is a situation where if Caleb Williams is any good at all, like he could jump in there and do some damage. Like Chicago, they won 7 games this year with pretty mediocre quarterback play, and Justin Fields was injured for some of the games.
yeah.
So could you imagine like if Caleb Williams if they just get the defense a little bit better and Caleb Williams comes in, like this could be a really nice situation. And I think I've been saying that, since last season, like the Bears are in a good spot if they can just figure this out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, like I've been saying, I mean, usually you get one quarterback per draft class who's pretty good or maybe better, and that could probably be him. I mean, we'll have to see where the other quarterbacks end up, but they seem like projects. So yeah, this is it could be it could. I mean, maybe it's one of those situations where the rookie comes in and then they make the playoffs. Who knows?
Yeah, could Chicago be last year's Houston or this year's Houston?
Yeah,
Where they turn it around and all of a sudden, look out, here they come. All right. So the other big NFL topic I thought was Kirk Cousins getting signed to the Falcons for on a 4-year, $180 million contract. And Clark, I don't know. I just feel like this is where the sports media bothers me, where they try to get way too cute with this stuff, where it's just like it's just literally just an immediate negative reaction, where it's like, yeah, but you're not going to win the Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. It's like, well, wait a minute. Like, why is that the answer, the only answer to everything? Like, why is it you really think that all of these teams have a legit, when they start the year, like, we can go to the Super Bowl? Like, there's probably 6 to 8 teams in the NFL that have a shot at the Super Bowl right now, and that's not changing anytime soon. So I just don't I don't understand the criticism of the Kirk Cousins move. Like, look, this guy's really good. Like, Atlanta was, they won 7 games last year. They have drafted all these guys in the first top 10 on offense, and it's like, no, they want to win games. It's like, no, they got to come in, they got to win games. Like, okay, you might not win the Super Bowl, but look at their division. Like, if they win that division, they get a home playoff game. Who the hell knows? Did you have Detroit in the NFC Championship game this year?
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things that I just don't understand what people want. It's like, if it's not the greatest thing ever, well, then you can't do it. Well, what do you want them to do?
Well, the other thing is, people see these numbers and it's like, okay, 40 million, $40 million a year, 45 million. It's like, okay, well, I need to know the context of that. When people are like, oh, that's a lot of money. Well, this isn't just, you don't decide quarterback contracts in a vacuum. Okay. It's the market tells you what somebody's worth based on what other people have gotten. Okay. So if you're saying, oh, well, that's a lot of money. Well, is it? It's not 50 or 60 million. Dak Prescott's going to try to get $60 million. He's probably going to get it. You could argue that's too much money. But if Kirk Cousins is only making 45, and if you look at the numbers, Kirk Cousins is basically Dak Prescott. Just one of them has a star on the side of his helmet. So I don't understand how that can be such a big thing. And then it's also like, okay, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Well, I mean, yeah, most teams aren't going to win the Super Bowl, but he's much better than what they've had at quarterback the last few years, ever since Matt Ryan left. I mean,
right.
If if you can protect him and he's got some weapons there, if he can just get the ball out, like, that division's really bad, you could make the playoffs. And then in the NFC, you don't have to deal with Patrick Mahomes. And people are like, oh, well, are they going to be able to beat San Francisco? I mean, the Vikings with Kirk Cousins last year beat San Francisco. Are you sure San Francisco is going to be fully healthy going into the playoffs? I mean, they actually weren't this year, but they were able to limit, like, major injuries. But that's kind of a tough proposition with, like, Deebo Samuel and Kittle and all those other guys staying healthy. So you look at the other teams. I mean, it's like, what, are you terrified of Dallas? Like, no. Like the Eagles, oh, they got to deal with the Eagles. The Eagles are a mess. We don't know what's going on there. We don't know if they're going to be good again. Like, they completely fell apart at the end of the year. Maybe that continues. We don't know if the coordinators they hired are all that great. Are you really convinced that Kellen Moore is just amazing? I mean, second team in 2 years. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't sound all that great to me. So, yeah, you could, if you wanted to, you could make an argument. And also, it's like, guys, they need to win games. Like, the whole job is to win games. And Raheem Morris, the coach, he was a coach before in Tampa Bay. It didn't work out. This is his second opportunity. You really only get like 2 opportunities as a head coach in the NFL. So he needs to win games. And if, like I said, if Kirk Cousins is healthy and he's playing and you protect him with the offensive line, you can win games with him. And you could possibly win that division. That's much better than what they've had basically since the year after they made it to the Super Bowl. I mean, they've been a mess basically since then. So, again, I don't really see what the complaining is. And you start to hear some other people like, oh, I think Justin Fields is better than Kirk Cousins. Okay, guys, you go live on the planet where you think Justin Fields is better than Kirk Cousins, and I'm going to stay over here in reality.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think that and I'm glad you brought that up about the numbers. Like, people look at that number and they think it's insane. $45 million for a solid starting quarterback is the going rate, folks. Like, I
More
hate
or
to
less.
break it to you. Not to mention the salary cap went up $30 million. It's $255 million now. Okay. This contract he's got, the first 2 years are guaranteed. The third year, only 10 million is guaranteed. So it's not even like, oh my God, they're taking this plunge and they'll never be able to recover from it. It's not that kind of contract. He's, of the start, you go by average annual salary. Kirk Cousins is tied with Patrick Mahomes for the eighth highest quarterback, right? And you just mentioned Dak Prescott. When Dak Prescott, Tua, okay, and Trevor Lawrence, when they all get paid, Kirk Cousins won't be in the top 10 in terms of salary for starting quarterbacks. Like, what are you talking about? That this is a bad move? I just don't get it at all. And I would take, as a Dolphins fan, I would take that Kirk Cousins contract today. If
Yeah.
you gave me Kirk Cousins, you can have Tua, I would do it immediately.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to worry about, I know the Achilles scares people. I get it. But Kirk Cousins is not a running around all over the place. And I also think this thing in Atlanta is perfect because they're running the same offense that he was running in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Their offensive coordinator comes from the Rams, just like Kevin O'Connell. So it's literally a perfect fit. I don't understand. I don't get the criticism of it. Like, I don't understand. Like, they went from Atlanta's trying to make the playoffs. That's where they're at, and they're probably not going to win the Super Bowl. If you don't have one of those quarterbacks, by the way, who are never available.
Yeah.
And this is like we talk about all the time. You don't like a move, fine. Give me an alternative. Tell me what the alternative is, because there isn't one. Either
You can
Atlanta
draft a
draft.
quarterback. You can draft a quarterback. Now, granted, they probably would have had to try to move up because they went 7-10 last year. It's not like they're in the top 10 in the draft. I don't
Well,
think
they're eighth.
they're eighth. All right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you still would have had to move up.
Yeah,
But
and by the way, they could still draft a quarterback if they want. But I wouldn't imagine they're going to do it
I would
now.
think they.
But
I still think they'll draft a quarterback maybe 2 or 3 years from now, and maybe he sits and they wait and see if he's ready to go. So, like I said, Raheem Morris, he's got to win. The front office there, I'm not sure what changes they made since Arthur Smith got fired, but you got to win, okay? And that doesn't necessarily mean win the Super Bowl for Atlanta. If you can just win games, make a couple playoff appearances, everybody keeps their jobs and everybody's fine. Okay, so
yeah.
yeah.
All right, so moving on, Clark. A lot of this is something I find interesting. So some of the running backs got some contracts. Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles. Josh Jacobs went to the Green Bay Packers. Derrick Henry went to the Baltimore Ravens. And I just find this interesting that how the media tries to outsmart themselves here, right? I just explained the salary cap went up $30 million. Everybody's like, oh, you can't pay running backs. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Well, we're only like 4 or 5 years removed from Ezekiel Elliott getting $15 million a year from the Cowboys. And you're paying Saquon 13, almost 14. You're paying Josh Jacobs like the same thing. I think it's 12 to 14, something like that per year. And these contracts aren't fully guaranteed either. So I don't understand. Like, these are good moves. Spending $13 million on a running back that's legit, like Saquon Barkley, is awesome. Okay, and he's perfect for the Eagles because he can do all of the stuff that they want to do, and it takes the pressure off the quarterback. Like, I don't understand what the consternation is about this. This is like obvious. $13 million for a really awesome running back is fine. Like, it's not a problem. Christian McCaffrey still makes more than these guys do anyway. Number one, and I just think that this is like low hanging fruit. Like, these media people want to be smarter than everybody else. Oh, you can't spend that money on running back. What are you doing? You can't do that. Blah 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 blah. Well, why not? Like, I don't get it. These guys, forget the fact that they're running backs, Clark. They're playmakers. Like, they make stuff happen. And when you're talking about 2-year deals, like, honestly, like, Derrick Henry's making $8 million. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, that is, are you kidding me? These receivers are getting, like, what is it? T. Higgins on the franchise tag is getting $21 million. Like, I don't get it. I don't think this means, oh, running backs are going to get paid now. No, running backs are, still not getting paid as much as other positions. But for the teams, I just don't understand what the downside is.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is much ado about nothing. I'm not like Saquon Barkley may really impact the Eagles. Derrick Henry, that remains to be seen. He's 30 years old. Like, I just, people need to understand this. When someone talks about an older running back and they say, well, maybe he's lost a step or two. Okay, I'm out. Like, if a running back loses a step or two, then okay, he's not as effective as he used to be. I'm kind of out. I don't think these are like end of the world moves. I did hear Nick Wright make a point that like maybe the Ravens want to focus on defense, and maybe they, maybe they still will. Maybe they'll draft more players on defense because they did lose their defensive coordinator. Um, so I guess I could sort of see that a little bit, but I don't. I don't know. I don't. Some of these moves I don't really think are going to make a huge difference. I don't know. I mean, that remains to be seen. I don't. I just don't think they're like you're saying the contracts. I don't think the contracts are all that bad.
No, and I think it's getting Derrick. I think Baltimore is a perfect situation. I don't think Derrick Henry works on every team. I think Saquon could work on a lot of teams. I don't think Derrick Henry works on very many teams because of the way he runs. But Baltimore does that anyway. They want to be a power running team as it is. So I think that could work really well. Yes, he is getting up there in age, but we're only talking about I think only the first year is guaranteed. I just think for Baltimore, I just think they got to make sure they don't try to wear him out during the regular season. I think that's a bigger issue for them. But yeah, I don't. These are not cost prohibitive, franchise damaging contracts. The damaging contract is that Dak Prescott has a $60 million cap hit this year. Those kinds of things are a problem. The fact that we're yakking about running back contracts when it's like now what they make is such a far less percentage of the cap than it used to be that it's not even that big a deal. Yes, Philadelphia needs to fix their defense. I understand that. Like I get it. But this guy still helps them. You can fix. There's lots of ways you can fix your defense. You can draft some guys. You can bring in some lower level guys. Like this doesn't prohibit you from doing anything. So I thought
Well, yeah, and if by the way, if you guys are gonna not to bring it back to Kirk Cousins, but if you're gonna freak out about the Kirk Cousins contract, can you also freak out in the same way about Dak Prescott when he gets a new contract? Because you know that's coming. You know Jerry's gonna pay him, and it's like, oh well, how many playoff wins if you're gonna do the whole playoff win thing? How many playoff wins does Dak have? 2. Okay, so okay. Anyway,
yeah, no, Dak Prescott 2 playoff wins. Ryan Tannehill has 2 playoff wins. Kirk Cousins got a playoff win. Like you want to do that stupid thing. Like it's just absolutely ridiculous.
yeah,
No, you're not gonna.
Lamar's got what 2 playoff wins?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you not want Lamar Jackson? I would. Like what? I don't understand.
yeah. It's comical. Anyway, all right. Let's see. Anything else NFL wise that you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it.
Yeah, free agency still. I mean, it's just kind of little moves here and there, but we've not heard about the Tua contract yet. So we'll see what happens with that. Not that ought to be pretty interesting for the Dolphins. And I think
I did see reports that Tua is like trying to lose weight to run faster, and I'm just like, okay, guys, if that's the case, like I thought we just went through this whole thing where he put on more weight so he could deal with the hits, so he wouldn't get injured. And now, what you want him to run around again because he was healthy for 1 year? Like what? Again, I don't know how true all that is. That's stuff you see on the internet. So whatever. I don't
yeah,
make too much
yeah,
of it.
it's wishful thinking to hope that he's going to be healthy all the time. All right, so this topic, I say, Clark, I find a college football topic every week. It seems like, but so Nick Saban, formerly the head coach of Alabama, went in front of Congress, in front of the House committee specifically, and talked about the state of college sports. And I thought that this was again low hanging fruit for the media. It's like now it's just we've gotten it's just ridiculous now. Anybody says any coach complains about anything, it's oh well you're just a hypocrite and you don't understand how it works and you don't want the kids to get any love and you like the NCAA and anything involving the NCAA just gets destroyed by the media these days. That's basically how it works now. And I just wanted to say that from he made a lot of comments talking about and kind of his wife seemed to be upset like why are we doing this, all these kids care about is how much they're going to get paid and whether they're going to start or how much they're going to play, how much playing time they're going to get, and he said it's completely different than this is not why I got into this, it's completely different than it used to be and blah blah blah. But he also made some really good points about yeah, college football has some problems and they need to be fixed. Like it can be both. You know what I mean? He can be kind of like not wanting to deal with the current state that it's in, and it can also be true. College sports are kind of a mess right now, and there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. He said he has no problem with kids making money. He suggested a revenue sharing plan between the athletes and the TV networks or whatever it is, the conferences, however they get the TV money. So I just thought this was completely mischaracterized by everyone going, "Oh, he's a hypocrite. Now he doesn't like it because, they're doing this now." It's like, no, he quit coaching, guys. He's not in the game anymore. So he's not saying these things. He's not hoping to gain anything by complaining about it. He's not complaining, "Oh, we can't beat this team, so I'm going to complain about it." He's not coaching anymore. So I just feel like a lot of those arguments need to be thrown out the window. I don't think it's hypocritical. I think if there's somebody that I want to help fix college sports, Nick Saban's top 5. He's really high on the list. I think that he should be involved in whatever changes need to be made. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out. That's where we are. Like we need to do a better job, and it needs to be run better. And he's totally right about that. Now, at the same time, I do understand. Yes, maybe he didn't like the way things were going, and I get it. But that's not taking anything away from the athletes. So yeah, I just thought this was I thought people were missing the point on this. The point is that it's a problem. We need to work it out. I think we need to stop asking the government for help. The government is not going to help us. There's nothing we need the government involved less than college sports. So yeah, I'll make my other point. But what do you think about what Nick Saban said to Congress?
Yeah, I mean, I think I basically agree with you. I mean, yeah, this isn't the way college sports was when Nick Saban got into it in the mid '70s. Which, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So I understand it from that perspective. But yeah, I think the other thing is for coaches, he talks about, this was about developing young people. It's like, well, you can still have it be about that, but also have the players getting paid. So you can have it both ways. They just need to they need to figure things out. They need to have like, you know, how you would do this if this was just purely a professional sport. Players, the coaches and the players, they all have contracts that spell out, all that different stuff. You have some sort of free agency period where you can, if people want to transfer or whatever the case is, they can do that. Yeah, you just need to institute a few of those things like you would in any other professional enterprise, and you could solve some of these problems. I think college football's main thing is to just they need to understand. Look, we're while we do have this weird connection to colleges, based on the way this was created, decades and decades ago. We're a professional sport, and we need to act accordingly. You know, and once we kind of dispense with all this, student athlete BS, and we can just move toward, look, this is a professional sport. Let's run this like a professional sport. It'll still be connected to the school, and then you'll still be giving out scholarships and stuff like that. You'll just have to figure out some logistical issues about how to do this, but just you know get past all that stuff because we I think pretty for the most part people understand this. Most people get it. The people anybody complaining and saying I don't want the athletes making money, they're probably just really old and they just don't. It's like, okay, fine. Well, this is this is about the future, not about the past. So yeah. Now, granted, will college football do that quickly? I mean, no, they never do anything. It will take them forever. But yeah, at first I was kind of like, oh, Nick Saban, you're just whining. And I probably still feel a little bit of that. But at the same time, I do think if you listen to the whole thing, he made a lot of good points. So, yeah, I'm not going to rip him too much. And like I said, like Bomani Jones and Dominique Foxworth made this point. They were on Bomani Jones's podcast, and they were just basically saying, look, Nick Saban didn't sign up for this way. So they can understand if he's like, yeah, I'm getting out of here. Like, so that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's fair. And by the way, I think it can be both. Yes, I think the players should be paid, and yes, this is a mess. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, yes, I think that a lot of the things that have happened are good, but we gotta we gotta straighten this out. We can't just have nothing, like no rules, and I do whatever you want. Like
Right.
that's not going to work. And I'm for the longevity of the sport. So Clark, I heard this just to jump back into the playoffs. So they haven't really approved the format for the playoff, but they've approved the money, which, by the way, is the only thing that matters. They've approved what conferences are going to get how much money or whatever. It sounds like they're going away from the automatic qualifiers, so everybody can relax about that. But I'm listening to there's a couple of different people. I'm listening to Josh Pate on the Late Kick. He has his own YouTube show, and then I can't remember. I think it was On Three or something like that. And I'm hearing a lot of this. This is from this used to be the old school college football. People would say this kind of stuff. Now it seems like the like the hosts who want to act like they're diehards. Like it's like, oh well, they're not preserving the integrity of what college football used to be. We're gonna have a playoff, and they're not concerned about what's best for college football. And it cracks me up, Clark. And I just want to talk about this for a minute because since when has college sports been about integrity? I'm sorry. Did I miss where's all this integrity they're talking about? Like it has never ever been about integrity. It has been about money, okay? That's why bowl games were invented. Not because we want to see who the better team is. They were invented to make more money. Conference championship games for money. Almost all these good things that have happened in college football in the last 50 years have been about money. So it drives me nuts that these guys are trying to act like, well, they don't care about what's best about college football. They just care about the money. And it's like, are we going to get more? And then the argument was, well, we're going to get more good games. Yeah, but are these going to be the good games that we want? And it's like, oh my God. It's just, you can't, I just don't think you can make these people happy. And I want to hear, like, spell it out for me. What is best for college football? I don't understand. Like, what is it? Because the model has constantly changed since the 60s. Like, that's where it was first suggested, hey, we should have a playoff. They've been going back and forth on this forever. And they're trying to make the argument, well, all they care about is money. If all they cared about was money, they would have had the playoff 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So what took so long? So first of all, like, it's just ridiculous. No, it's not about the money specifically. It's about who gets what and how much. It has more to do with that. But I just specifically to this integrity thing where they want to, no, I want what's best for college football. It's like, what does that mean? I don't understand what you say when you say you want what's best for college football. Do you want more good games and more money in the sport? I do. Do you want more games in December and January? I do.
Right.
So I don't understand what this integrity argument that I keep hearing. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me. People are like, oh, it's just going to keep expanding and it's just going to keep getting worse and blah blah blah. I'm sorry, I don't see it. So what do you think about the whole integrity argument?
Yeah, that just feels like people are complaining to complain.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, it just feels like there's a reflexive need to complain about college football, and people just do that about everything. And I feel like there's times where you just got to go, hey, can you not complain about this? This is a good thing. I feel like the only thing people maybe don't complain about is the games themselves.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really buy, like, again, if you're going to say you don't like something, you need to present an alternative. If you can't present an alternative, then you're just complaining to complain.
Right. We're not going back. Like, it ain't going back, guys. It's done. That era is over. And,
Yeah.
it was just like, this is what made college football great. Like, this is, I guess my fundamental disagreement is just people acting like it was fine before. The sport was fine before we had it's the Jason Whitlock argument. It was fine before the BCS and before the playoff. We didn't need that. It was fine the way it was. And I'm sorry, it wasn't fine the way it was. That's why people were complaining about it all the time, because it wasn't fine the way it was. We didn't know who the champion is. I'm sorry, that's a problem. Like, this idea, oh, well, we're not really sure. Splitting national championships is a problem. Like, don't tell me it was fine before, because it wasn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's I guess I have my soapbox college football topic every week. So that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it this week. I don't understand what this integrity of the game thing means. I don't understand. So I don't believe sports is a cathedral. I don't believe we need to bow down to the gods of whatever it is, to figure out what we're doing. I kind of think sports is an entertainment product, and it always has been. So I want whatever's best for the product. I don't see how any of these changes are making the product worse. So there we go. Anyway, so Clark, I want to talk to you about this talk to you about a trend that I'm seeing. Seeing a lot of things on YouTube. So there's a lot of younger people who never saw Michael Jordan play that are putting out a bunch of TikTok videos basically looking at 90s basketball games, and they're basically clipping it into like 30-second increments where they're showing people miss shots and, you know, people not play great defense or whatever it is. People struggle on offense or plays where Michael Jordan goes left and doesn't score, and they're trying to say, "Oh, see, this 90s basketball, this is crap. I don't understand what you guys are trying to tell us. 90s basketball was great, blah blah blah." And then there's a whole other faction of people who that there's young people that they don't like LeBron. They don't like the way LeBron handles, you know, situations. They don't like, you know, him tweeting out stuff, and they don't like a lot of stuff that probably has nothing to do with basketball. So they're now rooting for Michael Jordan to be the GOAT. Like, no, Michael Jordan's the GOAT because of this and this and this. And then the other faction is you have all these people that are, you know, probably younger than we are, Clark, who probably didn't see Jordan play as much as they'd like to tell us that they do. And they're trying to tell us 90s basketball was better. And so I just wanted to respond to, you know, 90s basketball versus today. So look, I understand people trying to make the argument, well, 90s basketball was, you know, here's the deal. 90s basketball was good. Like, we enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of good moments. There were some great players, like in any other sport in any other era. It was fantastic. We loved it. But that's all we had. Like, we didn't know any better. You know, we didn't know that there was going to be an influx of much better athletes who were more skilled, who could do all these other things. Like, there's the one of the things that's not debatable is the game now is way more skilled than it used to be. The players now are so much better. The talent level is significantly higher. Okay, that's not debatable. The average player today is way better, significantly, than they were in 1993. Okay, that's just that's just a fact. Is the game better? I think it's better because I think the idea that, oh, well, they played defense back then. No, they play defense now. It's just defense is much more difficult. It's really hard to play good defense now. Like, I would argue, I've been arguing this for a while. Defense now is much better than it used to be because it
Yeah.
requires a lot more athleticism. You have to cover a lot more of the court because of all the shooting. And by the way, and don't try to tell me, oh, it's just a bunch of people jacking stuff up that can't shoot. No, there's plenty of guys that can shoot nowadays. If you're putting a player out on the floor who can't really do anything on offense, you're asking for trouble. So yes, the 90s were great. Great players could play in any era, right? Didn't make any difference. But today's game is also great. Like, you can disagree with the way the game is played, but I'm sorry, today's game is awesome. Like, the creativity, the amount of people who can do different things, the amount of guys that can shoot, the athletes, all of the stuff involved. You know, did the game used to be more physical? Yeah, it did. But I don't think that changes the fact that, you know, this is still great basketball, and I'm a fan of both. I love the 90s. I love now. Like, I think this game is a whole lot of fun. Is it the same as it was back then? Of course not. It's completely different. The game is played completely differently. So, what's your take on, you know, 90s basketball versus today and all the people and all their opinions on it?
Well, a lot of people, when they say something was better back in the day, they're usually saying it from an uninformed position. Like, to be perfectly honest, like they haven't really watched it and they haven't really thought through it that much. So they're just saying something because they feel like it sounds good or something. Look, I'm with you. I think basketball now is better than it was in the '90s. And if you think basketball was so good in the '90s and the early 2000s, why did they make rule changes?
Right.
Okay. And by the way, watch the 2003 finals between the Spurs and the Nets. Okay. Watch the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq. Like, you know, watch the way the Knicks would play in the '90s. And then you want to tell me that that's better than, I mean, would you argue that, you know, a 16-13 NFL game is better than 34-27? now, like, I don't think you would, because you guys don't understand. It's like, a lot of times sports change rules because they understand that they need a better product. Okay. And the NBA understood that, like, this is getting too physical. We need more, we're getting more European players in here. We need more skill. We need more shooting. We need, more scoring. So they did that. Now, if you want to argue that maybe things have gone a little too far in one direction, okay, we can have that conversation. I might even agree with you. And maybe they need to do a little bit to sort of change it from just shoot. I mean, granted, there are a lot of threes that people shoot, and sometimes it's like, all right, can you guys do something else? Like, I get it. And aesthetically, it doesn't look very good when everybody's just shooting threes all the time. I totally understand. But we don't need to go back to the way things were in the 90s. If you want to tweak some stuff now, okay, let's have that conversation.
Yeah, I was watching on YouTube. There's a channel called Uncut Hoops, and he gave all these reasons why the 90s were better, and one of them that jumped out to me that I think people get this wrong all the time, and I've been talking about it for, I feel like 10 years now, and people continue to not get this right. He was saying that, oh, well, there were different styles of play back then, and different teams, the different teams played in different ways, and there was more variety, right? Nowadays everybody's trying to play like the Warriors, and where I push back on that is, well, they're just all that, they just spread out and they shoot threes and that's what they do. And it's like, no, that's first of all, that's not accurate. Number one, other than like 2014, 2015, that was the only those couple of years, that was where Golden State was like in the top 5 in 3-point shooting, right? Especially in terms of attempts. The rest of the time they were in the middle of the pack. Golden State did not beat you because they just shot threes better than you. Okay? They beat you because they had an offense where the ball moved, and it's also really funny to me. So the ball moved, they hit the open man, they made open shots, right? They beat you with all of that. And then they were the best defensive team in the league, right? So that's why they won. Not because they were so great and they just shot all these threes. That's not how it worked. And it's just funny to me. Steve Kerr coaches the Warriors, Clark. Okay? He was on the team in the 90s with Phil Jackson when they ran the triangle. So don't try to tell me, oh, there's no diversity. They're running the same goddamn offense they were running in the 90s. It's just spread out a little bit more. Like, it's just a new evolution of it. That's all that's happened. Nothing's really, like, I just find this funny. Nothing's really, you're not really inventing anything new, Clark, in any sport. You're just kind of changing the way it looks, so people have to prepare differently for it. But it's not really any different. So yeah, I just, everybody plays like the Warriors. No, there's some bad teams in the NBA that jack up way too many shots. I get that. But there were some bad teams in the 90s too.
Yeah, but I mean, the Nuggets don't entirely play like that. They shoot their fair share of threes, but they do plenty of mid-range stuff too. So the Celtics shoot a bunch of threes, and it's not really fun to watch. So if you want to criticize the Celtics now the way they play, yeah, I actually agree with you.
Yeah, and I also think that I just don't think it's not the truth to say, well, everybody plays like that and there's no interesting styles and nobody plays a fun offense anymore. It's just jacking it up. Go watch, and I commented this on YouTube. Go watch the 2013 finals between the Spurs and the Heat. The ball's moving all over the place. Okay, those teams played beautiful basketball. Did they shoot threes? Yeah, they did, but they always hit the open man, right? And then in the playoffs, the thing is, like, it's so funny. People get mad about what happens in the NBA regular season. In the playoffs, what does it turn into? It turns into slow down 90s basketball with some more 3-point shooting. But it turns into, oh, we're going to take mid-range shots. We're going to try to get the ball close to the basket. That's what it turns into. So I just I find it insane. And I don't think the truth, I think, is always somewhere in the middle. No, 90s basketball is not as good today. I'm sorry. It's just not. Now, were there some things I liked about 90s basketball that I'd like in the game today? Yeah, sure. But the truth is, they're both great in their own way. I don't think one's really better than the other, and then if you built teams, like I'm watching the 93 finals, game 4, Bulls against the Suns. Okay. Jordan scores 55 points. I'm watching it just going, they just didn't understand, like, the offense now, they just didn't figure, they hadn't figured out yet that, let's spread the floor. We'll run some pick and rolls and we'll try to get these guys more open threes. They just hadn't figured out, this is what we should do. They didn't have enough, plus you didn't have enough shooting on the floor to do it anyway. There was only 2 or 3 guys on the floor you really had to worry about when it came to offense. So it's just an evolutionary thing. This is the kind of thing that happens. And I just don't buy that, oh my God, the game's terrible now, because I'm sorry, man, when you get to the playoffs, it's still awesome. This whole thing, and the teams that want to go out there and jack it up, they won't win. So, I don't think, and plus I think the people who are trying to tell me the 90s were better are just, I think they're full of crap. Or they're not going back on YouTube and watching old 90s NBA games.
Yeah.
It's either you don't really like basketball, you just liked this thing that happened in 1994. I think it's something like that. So yeah, I just, I'm sorry. I'm not here to talk about, well, this era sucks and this era was great and all of that. I don't agree with it.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
So anyway, I think that's all. I think that's all we got for today. Looking forward to the NCAA tournament next weekend, and we'll see what happens from here. And NBA, NBA is getting close to the playoffs. We had some exciting games today. So All right, folks. Hope you tune in next time, and we'll catch you later on the Questionable Calls podcast. Take it easy.